Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about potential WCA events that could be added in the future. These are my opinions, but I think they have a fair bit of backing. It's not just like, I think they should get rid of clock because I don't like it. It's actually general reasons on why they should add these. So the first thing I'm going to talk about real quick is just clock. I think clock is a good event. There's people who really like clock. I don't think there was that many people who really liked feet. That's why they got rid of it. The reason with clock, it's a completely different event. Feet was still 3x3. Okay? The idea of clock is if you know how to solve it, it is similar to the other events because it's not just a conical style of solve, but there's also no algorithms as well, which makes it fairly unique. I don't really do clock that much. I average around 15 seconds. This is just the Xingxiao one. But I think it's something that should stay because if our hardware keeps getting better, more people are going to want to buy them. At the moment, the WCA clock is really good, but it's really expensive as well, which means, a lot of people aren't want to get that as much. But I reckon we're going to be getting them as cheap as this, but as good as the WCA in 1 to 2 years max. It's going to be a very big growth area, I think, especially when competitions are opening back up. I think it's going to be a big thing. So I don't think they should get rid of clock. Another thing I think hear people talking about a lot is mirror blocks. Now, I like the idea of this, but the problem with mirror blocks is the scrambling, for one, because not all mirror blocks are the same. We could have it so, say, for instance, with a cube, 3x3, you solve white top, green front. But with this, which one do you start with? So someone starting here could have a completely different scramble to starting here. But the idea of mirror blocks is actually not bad because I like mirror blocks. It's a good challenge, but it is fairly similar to 3x3. However, I feel like the scrambling could be made better if we start making all mirror blocks legal that have to have a very small edge. So for instance, this one has this small edge here, but it's kind of similar to this one. But we could say the smallest edge on the front and then the second smallest edge on the top or something like that. And then we do our scramble from there, which obviously will be the same notation as 3x3. So we could get around this, but there's a lot of logistics that need to come through it as well. And I don't think it's that different to 3x3. It's the exact same solve. There's no parity, there's no anything. And also with the centers, if you have this brush sort of thing, are we going to make it so they have to be solved as well? Or can they be like the opposite way of how it's shown? So there's a few things that need to come into consideration, but I do think it could be an interesting event, especially for spectators because it doesn't take that long. One of my personal favourites, I think the Ivy Cube would be a good addition. There's a few shape mods of this, like the Evil Eye and that kind of thing, but the Ivy Cube is very different to Scube. It's not the same thing. A lot of people think it is, but it's actually not. For one, the scramble is different because when you do Scube scrambles, there's a B move, right? But for this one, is this a B move? Or are we just using F moves? So we'd actually have to rewrite the scrambles, and it couldn't be the same as Pyramix either because they use Bs too. So that's an interesting thing to consider, and also it's really quick. This one could be done by anyone. It would be a good beginner sort of thing. If you can solve a 3x3, I'm definitely sure you can solve this. It's a very simple puzzle, and I've experimented myself with speed solving it. I can get around 4 or 5 seconds, and there is actually a few methods that can come in handy with solving it very fast, like knowing when to do the sort of this move. I don't know if that's a sledgehammer or not. I guess it's just sort of like a commutator in a way, but it's a very interesting puzzle, and I think it would be a good addition to the WCA. Now the third puzzle I think they should add, this is a bit of a different one, but the Gear Cube. Why I think the Gear Cube is because it's got a lot more popular recently. WCA and I think Xingxiao have brought out new ones, and they're actually really good. The solve isn't anything like any of the other cubes. There is 2x2 factors in it, but it's nothing like a 3x3, and the solve could be very different than a normal cube that we've seen before. And with new puzzles coming out means new hardware. This one's actually not even that bad, and this is like 10 years old. This was actually Felix Zemdeg's old cube. I managed to get this off him at a competition, which is quite interesting. But this actually isn't that bad, and if we could somehow find maybe even a magnetic gear cube, which would be pretty awesome. Same with the Ivy cube. If we got a magnetic version of this, that would be pretty good for speed solving. But I think the speed solving way we would do this is nothing like we've seen before, and it would also be pretty easy notation. It would kind of be like clock, where it's like turn once, twice, 3 times, that kind of thing. Or even like square one, I suppose, the scramble would be like. But yeah, the hardware is getting better, and it's actually not that different, but at the same time it is. So it would be a good addition because it's unique, and I don't think many people have thought about this before to be added, but I think, yeah, I'm going to stay optimistic about that one. And finally, a bit of a different thing, a relay. I think a 2 to 5 relay is a really interesting sort of event. It doesn't take too long, and some people have found really interesting ways to sort of go from finishing a cube to then going straight onto the next one, which takes up a bit of time. If you've ever tried to do a relay, you know what I'm talking about, but the luck is a lot more spread out because there's parity on this, and then there's also the luck of these two. It's also a bit harder because there's not as much inspection. You'd still probably get 15 seconds of inspection, but inspection time for all of these cubes is going to be very hard, especially with the 2x2. So, you know, people who average 2-3 seconds on 2x2 might get worse times because they'd be looking at this or this, and then they kind of forgot about this and couldn't one look at it as such. So, yeah, it would be a new challenge and something we haven't really seen before. It's nothing like the other solves because it's the transitions and the luck involved is very unique. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I think eventually something new will be added, even if it's like Megaminx 2x2, whatever that's called, the Kilominx, Kibiminx, that one. If that gets added, that'd be fine. I don't actually have one of those, so I've never really tried to solve it, but I'm sure it's pretty similar to the Megaminx. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'd really like to see what your guys' thoughts are on this, and if you have any ideas of what should be added as well. Alright, cheers guys.